Hello, and welcome to this MegaJoy presentation of the Trinity model. This is the sixth in our 10-part series, which kind of give a relatively good comprehensive summary of what the Trinity model is about. And so today you can see that we're talking about communication, okay? Communication. And so we're going to tie together, remember there are 4 types of storms. And as we go through and get a little more understanding of what it is we're actually discussing here, we're going to start to pull things together. See, because the real value of the Trinity model is being able to have a basic understanding of what's going on, and not to get lost in the sauce or get lost in the weeds. And so that's what we're doing today with communication. And when I taught in the classroom, I boiled all of this down to 3 basic concepts. Communication, which is one we're talking about today. Compassion, which is going to be the next one that we speak about. And then cooperation. And what you're going to see and start to visualize is how these things are so basic that just your understanding of it can help you weave through the storms of life. And so I talked about the storms. So today we're going to actually get a little more into the storms and what they look like. All right? And so up here in the noggin part, all right, what we would call truth, or at least our understanding of truth. And so 2 of the storms that show up, really, have to do with faulty information. Now again, faulty information can be, it can be a faulty belief that you have. It could be you just got some bad information. Maybe you got some information that was outdated. But either way, it's not accurate to what you need to bring into the natural law, into reality. And so the information you have, for whatever reason, there are many reasons for faulty information, and we delve into that at much greater depth in many other videos. But this video being about brevity, we can't get into all the ways of faulty information. However, there's kind of a second category of bad information, and that would come in the part of lies. So maybe we're talking about propaganda, maybe we're talking about a friend lies to you, or a spouse, or whatever. Maybe intentional, maybe not intentional, but either way, if you incorporate that into your knowledge base, it's still faulty information lacking in truth. So these are the 2 basic types of storms that can happen in the noggin. Now, let's come down to the environment, down to natural law. Notice how now communication is like incorporating these 2 laws, or these 2 things, your noggin and reality, how it plays out in reality. And this is a cyclical, not cyclical, well, yeah, kind of a cyclical. It's an interaction between these 2 concepts, between the concept of truth and the concept of power, between the concept of understanding and the concept of natural reality. Now, there are 2 kinds of, again, very similar to the 2 kinds of storms that can happen down here in natural law. And one of them is a natural disaster. Okay, so you've got a house and it burns down, or a flood comes along, or a tornado comes along. And these are natural things that can happen, okay? Or maybe a tree falls on your car when it's out in your driveway. These would be natural kinds of things that can happen, and they are a loss. You have experienced a loss in the environment. In natural law, you have experienced a loss. And that is a storm, okay? And so we have to in some way deal with that, okay? It's a loss, we've got to replace it, or maybe we don't have the capacity to replace it. Whatever, we can't talk about all the things that are remedies. What we can talk about now is the possible storm. Now there's also another type of storm, which would be like fever. Maybe somebody stole something from you. Well, that's kind of like the lie thing up here. Now, the thing about thievery is it is still a loss. So whatever they took from you may or may not, probably will not be replaced unless you go to the effort to replace it yourself. Okay? But then there's a secondary storm coming up, which means down here in the compassionate realm. Okay? So the point being here is to distinguish. Because in natural law, you have to deal with the loss. And you're going to use your noggin in order to overcome your loss. Whether it's natural disaster or thievery, you have to overcome the loss. That's in natural law. You lost money, you lost a car, you lost a house. Whatever you lost, it has to be replaced or dealt with. And your noggin is going to help you deal with that loss. Now, if there is a secondary storm having to do with some other individual, again, and this is why it's so important to distinguish between the storms, okay? Because so often, and usually more often than not, actually most of the time, those things get conflated, which makes dealing with them more difficult. And so it's the purpose of the Trinity model to point out how to give you a strategy for dealing with the various types of storms, which resources you need to pull to deal with that particular storm. Now let's move on over here. Keep in mind we're in the truth, this is kind of the truth domain up here. These things are objective, okay, as opposed to compassion when we get down here subjective. These are objective, knowable, learnable, okay, teachable, all right? And it has to do with power. Power is just simply whatever you can apply in natural law, okay, in the real environment, okay? Now, critical item here, because I'm trying to help you through these storms. And so we're moving up the ladder as to how to do that. Is your understanding needs to be process-oriented, okay? So you need to right away, right now, come to the conclusion that you do not know everything, okay? And once you start there, that will give you a way to go, all right? Which means there's stuff I do not know, so I need a process for learning, for gaining the information or knowledge that I need. Okay? And so it's a process orientation. And so it's not just about information. It's about information. You apply the information. You get some feedback from it. Maybe you should tweak some things. And so you're always involved in the process. It's not a it's not a trip. It's a journey. And for cliches and all of that kind of stuff. But I think you get my drift. That you need to be involved in the process in order for your noggin to deal with these issues. Okay, these storms will arise. And if you're not in the process, you are not going to be effective in dealing with those storms. And then, of course, down here in the natural law is whatever you're applying and whatever is occurring needs to be reasonable, okay? It needs to be reasonable. Is this a reasonable way to approach this? Am I getting reasonable results? And again, reasonable means I'm filtering it through my noggin in the process of are we moving in the right direction? All of those kinds of things. Now that brings me to the crux of communication. Okay? And these are actually the two things in this loop. The two things in this loop that you personally are responsible for. Okay? The main one is to listen. All right? You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We listen more than we talk. Okay? Listening means that you are taking in the information from the environment. Or other people, we'll get into other people later, but you're taking in the information, listening, okay? So you can listen, maybe your car is having a knock or a ping, you're listening to your car. Okay, so listening isn't always about people, although primarily that's where most of our problems occur, and that's really where most of our listening should occur. Okay, so you are responsible for listening, and that is the information that you are starting to process through your noggin. At which time you articulate that, you bring that outside of you into the environment, whether it's words or deeds or actions, whatever way you are expressing yourself. Okay, so maybe this is like reading and this is like writing. Okay, you are expressing yourself, you will articulate yourself to the best of your ability regarding the validity and accurateness of the information you have. This is called being truthful. Okay, and it could even be a belief. Well, I believe this, but now keep in mind your belief may not line up with truth. But in order to articulate, and you can articulate it as a belief, but when you articulate it, you are articulating your understanding of what you believe to be true. Okay? And so that has to be that has to do with the truth thing. And so it is an ongoing back and forth process going on. You are listening to what's going on. You process the information, you bring the information into the environment, and then the environment then, in turn, is going to give you more information to process. It's going to return to you, the sender. Okay? So as always, I appreciate the time that you've given me.